Hi guys, welcome to Pratham. My name is Sakshi Kaushik and I will be dealing with the topic of Introduction to Constitution today. So whatever questions are there in your mind, Constitution क्या है, कैसे आया, क्यों बना, I will be answering to all your questions today. So if I talk about the Constitution word, I would say Constitution is the basic of every law that is being framed by the Government of India. कहने का क्या मतलब है जब भी कोई लॉ नया फ्रेम होता है सो दैट हैज टू बी इन कन्फर्मिटी विद द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया सो व्हाट यू कैन understand by this thing is that constitution has to be seen in two perspective. First is constitution हमारे three organs के लिए क्या role play करता है. Like we have three organs. I would say the organs are legislative, executive and judiciary. If I talk about legislative, so legislature का काम क्या है? To frame law. Executive, it will execute that law which is being framed by the legislature. And lastly, it is judiciary. So judiciary का काम क्या होगा? It will keep a check that whatever work has been done by legislature and executive, is that being followed properly or not? So that is like we can say that there is a clear demarcation of power between the three organs of the government, and these demarcation is being clearly done in the Constitution of India. So I would say Constitution plays important role for the government as well as for the citizens of the country. We generally talk about right to sleep, right to privacy, right to life, right to freedom of speech and expression. So all these things are given clearly in the Constitution of India. If I say that you have right to life and personal liberty, so you will question me where it is given. So my answer to you will be this is given in the Constitution of India. So what I can say is that whatever basic rights are given to the citizen of India, that is being clearly given in the Constitution of India. So moving to very first slide, so you can see in front of you that there is being a definition given of constitution in front of you. So first point that you can see is that this is the charter of the government. Now what do you understand by this charter of the government? इसका मतलब ये हुआ that the rules and regulations that is being followed by the government, those rules and regulations are clearly given in the Constitution of India in the form of articles. Second is it derives whole authority from the governed people. Now students, this is one interesting point. The point is that when the constitution was being framed, so everyone in the country was being concerned about this thing, and that there were people who gave suggestions on this thing. There were amendments, there were discussions which were being made. So everything was governed by the people indirectly. That means the people of India, basically they were the one who are the ultimate source of the Constitution of India. Third is it sets out the framework and the functions of the government. As I told you, like it clearly demarcate the power between the three organs of the government. Now imagine a situation there is no demarcation, there will be overlapping between the three organs of the government. Fourth point, it is collection of rules which establish and regulate or govern the government. This is the same rules and regulations that I'm telling you, which is given in the Constitution of India. And lastly, it is not the act of the government, but it is act of the people, because ultimate source is the people of the country who framed the Constitution. Now you can see there are some important facts in front of you. So you can see the Constitution of India was adopted on 26 November 1949. So I would say this date is called as the law day in the country, because on this date the Constitution of India was adopted, enacted, and it came into force. It came into force on 26th January 1950. If I talk about adoption and enactment, the date will be 26th November 1949. And if I talk about when did it come into force, so it was 26th January 1950. Now you must be thinking, What was the relevance of keeping 26th January as the date? There is a reason behind that. In 1930 also, this date was kept as a Purn Swaraj, but that time it could not be celebrated as that day. So to know the relevance of this date was kept as the constitution when it came into force. So there is one more interesting thing. The thing was there were few provisions, for example, citizenship, etc., which came into force in 26 November 1949 only. Uh, Rest of the provision they came into force on 26 January 1950. So this is the relevance of these two dates, and being law aspirant, being the CLAT aspirant, you have to remember these two dates as they are the most important dates, I would say. Now, this constitution is called as the lengthiest constitution of the world. The reason is there were all the detailed provisions which were given in the constitution. When the constitution was being framed, the draftsmen they concerned all the constitution of the world, and whatever thing they liked most, they basically inserted that in the constitution of the India. Now you can see there is a table in front of you which talks about articles, parts and schedules. So articles originally they were 395. Originally when I'm talking it was 26 January 1950. Originally they were 395 and presently there are 467 articles. In the same way, if I talk about parts, there were 22 on the day the constitution came into force and presently there are 25 parts. And lastly, schedules. They were 8 in number when the Constitution of India came into force, but now they have increased to 12. I will be dealing in the next video about the schedules, what all are these and why there was a need to add these schedule. Moving to next slide. Now, I just told you that Constitution of India is the lengthiest constitution of the world. There is a reason behind this. You can see in front of you that there are few borrowed features which India has borrowed from the different constitution of the world. First is British Constitution. So what you can understand is when the Constitution of India was being framed, the draftsperson they have gone through all the constitution of the world, whatever they liked they picked it up. For example, if I talk about British Constitution, they liked parliamentary form of government, they liked single citizenship idea, they liked rule of law, institution of speaker and the law making procedure. In the same way, fundamental rights, federal structure and judicial review feature was picked up from US Constitution, and directive principle of state policy, which is part 4 of the constitution, that was picked up from the Irish Constitution. There were other features also, for example, the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. They were picked up from the French Constitution. The quasi federal form of structure and the idea of residual powers was picked up from Canadian Constitution. Australia gave concurrent list and the freedom of trade and commerce. In the same way, fundamental duties and planning commission idea was being picked up from the Soviet Constitution. So what you can understand it, the Indian Constitution is a borrowed constitution. There were many things which were being picked up and they are given in a detailed form in the Constitution of India. Now, I will be discussing the formation of Constituent Assembly and the process of the Constitution of India. Now, students, see, there was one thing. When the Constitution of India was about to frame, the draftsperson, or I would say the people of the country, everyone was about this thing that what is going to happen and how a particular charter will be framed that will tell the rules and regulation to the government as well as which will provide rights to the citizen of the country. So in the same process, a constituent assembly बनाई गई, and the purpose of this assembly was to make different committees that will work on the formation of the constitution. So you can see in front of you in your slides that the elections for Constituent Assembly were held in July 1946, and then in this there were 22 committees were formed. 10 were on procedural law, that means अगर FIR है तो कैसे क्या step follow होंगे, these type of procedure were being discussed in the procedural law, and the 12 were substantive law. Substantive में for example you can talk about contract, you can talk about Indian Penal Code, all these things will be covered under the substantive law. In total, there were 22 committees. Now, the first meeting of Constituent Assembly was done on 9th December 1946. Now, on this date, their chairman was Sachidanand Sinha, and just after 2 days, that is, on 11th December 1946, the president was changed and Rajendra Prasad became the new chairman of the Constituent Assembly. So, students, आपको एग्जाम में दो टाइप से याद रखना है. Firstly, who was the temporary and the first president of Constituent Assembly, and secondly, who was the chairman that was being appointed just after 2 days of the formation of the first meeting of Constituent Assembly. Now, the total time taken was 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. Now, this 17 and 18 is slightly controversial, so you have to keep it in mind. You can mark either 17 or 18. This will not be a wrong answer in your all law entrances that are going to appear. So, you can see the time taken by the person were 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. In this period, there were several amendments which were being proposed from the people of the country, and there were other discussions that were being done by the drafting committee. Now, the word I have just mentioned, drafting committee, now this was the most important committee out of the 22 committees out of being formed. Now, this drafting committee, now इनका काम क्या था? इनका काम था to frame the Indian constitution, right? To frame the Constitution of India. And the chairman of the drafting committee were B.R. Ambedkar, and the constitutional advisor to this committee was B.N. Rao. Now you have to keep these two in your mind and repeat it again. The chairman of drafting committee were B.R. Ambedkar and the constitutional advisor were B.N. Rao. Now this whole committee, they studied the constitution, and finally, after studying the different constitution of the world, for 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days, the Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949, which came into force on 26 January 1950. There are other important dates also that you have to mind that are being asked in different law entrances. Now you can see in your front of your slide that national flag, it was adopted on 22nd July 1947. National anthem, it was adopted on 24th January 1950. It was composed by Rabindranath Tagore. Now the shorter version is 20 seconds and the full version is 52 seconds. Now students, whatever I am telling you, you have to remember this, that the shorter version is the first and the last stanza of the national anthem, and full version is when you completely sing the national anthem. Now this question is being oftenly asked in your different law entrances. And lastly, state emblem, it was adopted on 26th January 1950. So that was the brief introduction about the formation of Indian Constitution. I will be coming up with new concepts in my next video. Stay tuned. Thank you so much and all the best.